Graders, welcome to Mathematics 101. Today we are going to talk about adding and subtracting decimals. So if you would take out a blank piece of paper and write on top of it decimals, we will get right to work. I think you'll find this pretty easy, but let's just do this here. Here we go. We are talking about decimals. And the little subheading here, if I can get my thing to work, the little subheading under decimals is adding and subtracting them. And if you could, in some absolutely ginormous words, the one phrase that you need to know to add and subtract decimals is simply this. You need to line up, put that in quotation marks, the decimals. Line up the decimals. Watch how just incredibly easy this is. Let me give you an example and I'll show you exactly what we're talking about. So here, for example, if you have 3.46 and to that you are adding 0.2. Okay. Normally, back in the day, when you'd add things together, you just line up the left-hand sides or whatever, but that's not the case here. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's my 3.46, and when I say line up the decimals, that means once you have this decimal here, every other decimal in the problem is going to fall in a line with that decimal, including where it's going to go in your answer. So if I am adding 0.2 to that, okay, the point has to go here, the decimal has to go there. 0.2 to that. In my answer, the decimal is also going to fall on that same line up the decimal. And I can always add zeros at the end if I need to make it look good. 0 plus 6 is 6. 2 plus 4 is 6. And 3 plus 0 is 3. So you get 3.66. Remember, line up the decimals. Line up the decimals. Let's look at a subtraction problem. How about this one? 0.534 minus 0.21. Okay, using the rule of lining up the decimals, I take my 0.534. And now every decimal from there has to line up on that line. I've put my 0.21 and I am subtracting here. So I can go ahead and fill in some zeros there. In my answer, the decimal goes on that same line. 0 from 4 is 4. 1 from 3 is 2. 2 from 5 is 3. And again, as we talked about ad nauseum, you don't really need this 0 here. I'm going to put it there just because I feel a little better about having it there. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. Now how about let's go for fun and excitement and do this. Let's do more than 2. What if I said to add 3.6 plus 0.52 plus 2.943. So if I am adding those together, knowing the rules of decimals there, which is to line them up, here's what this problem would look like. 3.6. Every decimal from here on in has to fall on that same line. So 0.52 plus 2.943. See how all the decimals line up there? And then in my answer, it's going to fall on that same line. Feel free to add zeros as needed here. 3 plus 0 is 3. 4 plus 2 is 6. 9, well, 6 plus 5 is 11, plus 9 is actually 20. How about that? Working out nicely. Carry my 2. 2 plus 3 is 5, 6, and 7. So my answer there is 7.063. Now I believe we are also going to talk about, what about if it's a whole number? Let's just throw this at you here. What if I am adding 5 plus 0.25? Do not panic, ladies and gentlemen. I know there's no decimal in 5, but you can probably figure it out. You know, if we wrote the number, if I said I was giving you $5 and I wrote it like that, how would you write that out as a decimal in dollars and cents? Well, where does the decimal go? Right here after the 5. That's what $5 is. So a note to write down here is this. Whole numbers have a decimal. We don't always write it. Whole numbers have a decimal at the end of them. Whole numbers have decimals at the end of them. Okay, so right here, going back to my 5, the decimal goes right there. So when I'm adding these together, it's going to be 5 decimal point. And I line up my decimals, so this becomes 0.25. I can put up my 2 zeros. I'm adding, and I get 5 point. Notice how all the decimals still line up to 5. Which makes sense, because if you had $5 plus 25 cents, you get $5.25. Now let's take a look at a subtraction problem maybe with that. What if it was 13.63 minus 8? Okay, please don't do this. This is not 13.63 minus 8 over here. Okay. That does not and is not right, because the decimal in 8 goes here, and you'd have to line up those decimals. So please, I'm going to scratch that out. It's going to look like this. 13.63 minus 8.00, because I need to fill in those spots. 0, let's put my decimal down here. Notice again they line up. 0 from 3, 0 from 6, 8 from 13 is 5.63. So hopefully that helps you with decimals. We will certainly talk more about that later, but that is how you add and subtract using those decimals. Thanks for tuning in. I know you really